Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 90. Setting out. The moment he saw Feng Yunjun, Chen Xing nearly jumped over the moon. He repeated over and over, "How are you here? Where's Xiang Xiangdi?" Feng Yunjun didn't have time to answer and instead strode inside the room first. Chen Xing answered, "He's under the bed. Go look for horses first. We need to leave Xiang Yang as soon as possible." "Right," Feng Yunjun said. "Look for a cart, right now he's in no condition to move." Feng Yunjun leaned down and greeted Xiang Shu under the bed before turning around and going to the courtyard with Chen Xing. "Xiang Shu." Chen Xing followed behind Feng Yunjun and ran out of the governor manor. Feng Yunjun asked, "What the fuck is going on?" "I was just bathing in the river. Who's going to explain to me why a moment ago we were still capturing Shihai in the Yin-Yang Mirror's version of Chang'an City, and a moment later, I was suddenly taking a bath outside my city from 3 years before?" Chen Xing spoke, "The last memory you have is..." Chen Xing suddenly remembered on the day they set up an ambush inside the Yin-Yang Mirror, Feng Yunjun and Xiao Shan were simultaneously controlled by Chu, and there was no news afterward. Apparently, he didn't know what happened in the next 3 months. Maybe he also died? But then, the Dinghai Pearl was activated, and the time got reversed. At this time, Feng Yunjun was on his way to my city, and as a result, they would meet a day after. It was midnight in the third night period, Feng Yunjun said. I was confused as hell and broke into a house to ask about the current time. Then, I suddenly thought, weren't you supposed to be in Xiangyang right now? And then I came here as fast as possible. Obviously, Feng Yunjun had been faster in figuring out the situation and had immediately made a decision that was wise beyond compare to find Chen Xing first. "So you also remember what happened in the future," Chen Xing stated. "I remember too. It's strange, why do Zhu Su and the rest not have any memory of that time? What about Xiao Shan? Is he still in Karasha at this time? He should be safe for the time being. I didn't know him until this winter. Xie Shixing is in Jiankong. Wait, Xiao Shan is in Karasha, so Liu Ying is still alive then." As he had no time to ponder about many things before, when this point came to mind, Chen Xing immediately exploded. There was too much information, and he became a little overwhelmed. Feng Yunjun said, "My big brother should still be alive. I don't know about Wang Zi, did you kill him afterward?" Wait, the most important thing to do now is to escape and find a place to slowly discuss this later." Chen Xing yelled, "Someone's here!" A group of Qin troops rushed towards Feng Yunjun. Chen Xing was about to tell Feng Yunjun to close his eyes, intending to use the heart lamp to dazzle them, when Feng Yunjun drew his saber out and casually waved it toward the street. In an instant, trees on the entire main street fell, and both the Qin soldiers and horses were overthrown, knocked all over the ground at once. "Chen Xing," Feng Yunjun said, "what surprises me even more is how Sen Luo saber isn't the same as before. With the revival of all magic." Chen Xing trailed off. "Find horses first, we've wasted too much time." "All right," Feng Yunjun said. "I'll look for you later to mull it all over together." The two men ran toward the Qin army that had been knocked down by Feng Yunjun, but the soldiers were so scared, they hurriedly mounted their horses and ran away. "Don't run ah!" Chen Xing shouted. "Leave the horses behind." Feng Yunjun had almost tripped over the tree he had knocked down himself and wasn't able to catch up with the war horses. He was at his wits' end and could only look at Chen Xing. "Why is my luck so bad today?" Chen Xing returned to the courtyard, and the two appeared again in Xiang Shu's field of vision. This time, there was no choice but to carry Xiang Shu in his arms as they fled the city on foot. Fortunately, Feng Yunjun was here. The two turned their heads and looked at Xiang Shu under the bed. Xiang Shu's eyes were full of confusion, but since he couldn't open his mouth to speak, he just stared at them. "Feng Yunjun, it's dawn. How long until he can move?" Chen Xing, don't even think about it, he's still got several more Shishan ne. Feng Yunjun said, this won't be easy ah. If I'm carrying him, I'm afraid I won't be able to look after you. Where's your Iupator? Hurry up and ask for 2 horses. Iupator? Chen Xing asked. Iupator. The previously murky memory gradually became clear, and Chen Xing stood there like a fool. Iupator is gone. I see. It's because he's gone. My luck is back to normal. Gone where? Feng Yunjun was surprised. This joke isn't funny, are you serious? Xiang Shu. Chen Xing, it's really gone ma. Saying so, he lowered his head and looked at his own 2 hands while murmuring, I don't need to die. I can keep on living. Right at this moment, from outside the courtyard, arrows rained down in all directions. The Qin troops loudly shouted and made a clamor, they had obviously brought in reinforcements. However, they dared not charge inside the governor manor and just randomly shot arrows into the interior, which got nailed outside of the door and made a ruckus. Feng Yunjun yelled, be careful of random arrows. The Qin army's arrowheads are all coated with strong anesthetic. Chen Xing was caught off guard, he got shot in the thigh by a stray arrow and immediately screamed in pain. Xiang Shu. Feng Yunjun shouted, go hide inside. I'll take care of this. Chen Xing, I am hit. Ha 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 ha, an arrow hit me. Feng Yunjun was about to explode. Are you crazy ah? Quickly wrap it up. When Chen Xing was hobbling away, he tripped over the threshold and fell, causing him to despair over his life's destiny that had unexpectedly decided to wonderfully resolve itself at this moment. I am hit by an arrow. Chen Xing turned his head and laughed at Xiang Shu. Iupator is gone. This, AR arrow. But then Chen Xing's smile gradually solidified on his face. This arrow is poisonous. Chen Xing toppled over at a crooked angle and fell to the ground. Feng Yunjun went on a rampage, only a series of shouts could be heard from the outside. Once he had taken care of all those Qin troops, he returned to the room, only to see Chen Xing lying motionless with a smile frozen on his face. Feng Yunjun rushed to shake him. Tianqi. Xiang Shu. Another Shishan passed. Feng Yunjun, riding a horse with a drugged Chen Xing who still couldn't move an inch tied behind him, escaped Xiang Yang together with Xiang Shu, wrapped in a quilt as he lay horizontally on another horse. At sunrise, flames rose from the governor manor. After Murong Chui and the rest had entered the manor and set up a base, Zhu Su, who had received Chen Xing's warning, immediately started his plan and set the governor manor ablaze. Together with the few remaining soldiers, he then charged in with all they had. However, they still were no match for them. Defeated and captured, they surrendered to the Qin. In the 4th year of the Taiyuan period, on the 2nd day of the 2nd lunar month, Xiang Yang fell. 2 horses rushed out of the city, breaking through the black smoke as they headed southward, far and beyond. From the conflagration of war that covered the city, a golden red bird flew out, spreading its wings and flying south to chase after Chen Xing. Chang'an. The horizon was densely covered with layers of clouds, dark thunder surging on. At the beginning of spring, the sky was gloomy, and the rain was dripping about. It was already early in the morning, yet the whole city was still dark. This was a very, very, very ordinary spring morning. Stores, both streets and alleys, started to open up their businesses, and officials began to enter the palace for a morning court. The entire ground was damp, and at the start of the spring season, plants and vegetation sprouted anew. Among the people, this day was also known as the Raising Dragon Head and was said to be the period when the Dragon of the North awakened. Everything seemed to be not in the least different. However, in the middle of the night, Wang Zi suddenly noticed that the situation had changed. He rushed to the stargazing platform by the 4th night period. However, dark clouds were covering the sky, and there was nothing to see, except some light drizzle. Once the royal astrologer heard the news that Wang Zi was coming, he could only get up and accompany him with drowsy eyes. Braving the rain on the platform, he asked, "Wang Darren." His face full of bewilderment, Wang Zi was standing on the platform as he stretched out his hand to feel the dripping rain. He murmured to himself, "Both the heaven and earth, what day is it today?" Raising dragon head, the royal astrologer replied, "The earth chi has awakened. All magic has returned to life," Wang Zi said. "How is that possible? What exactly happened?" In just a single night, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, which had disappeared for no less than 300 years, came back without any warning, exactly like how it had once disappeared silently without leaving any trace, wordless, to the point that there was nobody who was able to pinpoint the exact time it had happened. Should be around the Zi period. Wang Zi began to recall the moment he started to realize that something was amiss, and it was indeed the Zi period of the second day of the second lunar month. What happened then? Where did it begin? There has been no definite change. The Dinghai pearl was shattered. Impossible. No matter where a surge of spiritual qi occurs, it's bound to leave a trace. Where exactly did Xiang Yuan hide it? Wang Zi immediately turned around and went down the platform, returning to his carriage. "Darren, are you going to the court?" the coachman asked. Wang Zi ordered, "Songbei residence. Go now." At noon, in front of the house by the creek in an abandoned village in Jingzhou, a golden red bird flew in and perched on the parasol tree by the side of the house. The anesthetic effect on Chen Xing was over. He simply wrapped up his thigh before personally fetching water to wash Xiang Shu's face. Feng Tian, who had been tossed all over the place throughout the night, was so tired. He plundered some rice grain left behind by fleeing refugees from the village and began to cook. "What a beautiful, fine jade ah!" Chen Xing looked at Xiang Shu, and the more he saw it, the more he liked it. Xiang Shu's eyebrows furrowed ever slightly. There was already a little expression on his face that was currently staring at Chen Xing. After Chen Xing peeked at Feng Tian and saw that he didn't pay attention to him, he had a thought to lower his head to kiss Xiang Shu, though he became totally embarrassed, and his face flushed red at once. "How much longer is the medicine in effect?" Feng Tian asked. "This food definitely won't be enough. Just make do for now, ba, and once we reach my city, let's make a transaction that will bankrupt Dongzhi together." Chen Xing staggered a little, at once standing up to change the water for Xiang Shu while saying, "Wait until Xiang Shu has recovered and has eaten something. We must clearly sort out the situation first, there are so many things we don't have a single clue of." Feng Tian spoke, "No, when I came over, I especially took note of one thing, that the Dongzhi Bank in Xiangyang City was still open." Chen Xing replied, "Yes, just." Feng Tian interjected, "This is the most important key point." Chen Xing, who had continued to wipe Xiang Shu's face after he had finished washing the towel, turned his head toward Feng Tian in doubt. "Feng Tian, based on the fact that the Dongzhi Bank still exists now, we can deduce all matters to come. Dongzhi is around also, so that is to say, that proves that Wen Che is still in this world." Chen Xing, "True. Else it'd make no sense." Although Chen Xing had been numbed by poison along the way, he had been thinking all along, is Shi Hai still alive or not? Where is Chu? Had the Dinghai pearl indeed caused every single person to return to 3 years before? If that's the case, then those people who died in these 3 years, are all here. Wen Che is here, Feng Tian added, which means that everybody else is also here. Qing'er is still here. Chen Xing laughed and got up. Feng Tian's eyes suddenly turned slightly moist, and nodding his head, he said, "Tuobayan too." Chen Xing, "Tuobayan is not dead. Lu Ying as well." Chen Xing said in a low voice, "And King Akele, they're all here." But then, Chen Xing remembered that Che Lufeng was also here, and all of a sudden, he couldn't be happy anymore and threw a hateful look at Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu! Chen Xing drew back his finger and flicked Xiang Shu on the forehead, leaving behind a shallow red mark. Feng Yunjun added, King He is still here too. Chen Xing knew then that Feng Yunjun was in big trouble this time. Feng Yunjun raised his eyebrows once more. So Shi Hai is most likely also here. True. Chen Xing nodded and got up once again to clean the towel. He was already so hungry and had no more strength left. The congee is not yet ready, ma? Eat first before talking again, ba, there is really so much to do. Suddenly, a puppy sniffed the smell of congee and ran over. It wildly wagged its tails at Chen Xing while barking out woof, woof, woof. It was as if there was a sudden thunderbolt striking Chen Xing's head. Feng Dage. Chen Xing mumbled. Feng Yunjun looked at it and immediately yelled, ah! It's Xiang Shu. At the base of the wall, Xiang Shu, wrapped in a quilt and basked in the sun, showed a strange expression. Xiang Shu! Xiang Shu! Chen Xing wildly shouted. Xiang Shu! You are here too! My God! In order to protect Chen Xing, that puppy ultimately got stabbed to death by the corrupted Princess King He. Now, as soon as Chen Xing saw it, even the poems and books he had learned all his life were incapable to express his excitement right now, so he just went and pounced on it on the spot. Xiang Shu! Don't run! Recognize me! Feng Yunjun hurriedly put down the ladle he used to cook congee and ran over. Startled by Chen Xing's enthusiasm, the puppy turned around and ran away. Chen Xing's thigh got shot by an arrow and was injured, so he could only limp and hobble slowly as he ran around. For a moment, Feng Yunjun forgot that the real Xiang Shu was watching from the side, and in his eyes, there was only this puppy. Chen Xing busily commanded, quickly capture it. Don't let it run away. Feng Yunjun also quickly went to chase after it. It thinks you're playing with it any. You stop running first. Chen Xing, I can't control myself. Xiang Shu. Come here. I miss you so much, La. And so, the two men scampered around in front of Xiang Shu, chasing and intercepting that dog all over the place. The puppy also ran around and played with the limping Chen Xing for a moment before finally running to the congee pot and was picked up by Chen Xing. Chen Xing embraced that dog, both crying and laughing as he kissed it like his life depended on it. He and that dog were practically bawling into each other's arms. Feng Yunjun was smiling as he looked at Chen Xing on the side when suddenly, his eyes went dark, and he fell down. Chen Xing. Chen Xing was just about to turn his head when his eyes went dark as well. He was struck in the nape by Xiang Shu's palm and fell down. 1k later, Feng Yunjun and Chen Xing were both trussed up, the ropes running between their neck and their arms, and they were tossed into a corner of a civilian residence. That dog was now circling around Xiang Shu's feet. Xiang Shu, holding a dagger, was shaving off his stubble using the water as a mirror. A moment later, he turned around and left for the creek to get more water. Feng Yunjun said disbelievingly, he doesn't remember those things anymore? Why didn't you say so? Chen Xing's beliefs had been dealt an even heavier blow, and his mind was a sea of blank white. I thought, how would I be able to think of that? Why did he forget it all? Because he's the Dinghai Pearl. Feng Yunjun shouted wildly, what? He's the Dinghai Pearl. Chen Xing, Xiang. Feng Yunjun butted in, shh. Chen Xing glanced at Feng Yunjun, before flicking his gaze to the direction that Xiang Shu had left in. Feng Yunjun said quietly, listen to me. You listen to me, Chen Xing. Chen Xing breathed deeply, looking at the ropes on his own body, his expression crumbling. Feng Yunjun said, you want to tell him that he has lost his memories? Do you have any sense of whether or not he'll even accept everything you tell him? Will you tell him about what happened in the past? Chen Xing sent a look filled with confusion to Feng Yunjun, shaking his head. He wouldn't even wait for us to finish before he would say that I was making up a story and gag me. Ba, Chen Xing replied. Feng Yunjun said, then don't say anything for now. Let me first think of a way for us to escape our bonds, and then we two can work together to capture him. Never mind, you sit here and don't move. Ba, I'll be fine on my own. Now, Chen Xing was also slowly approaching clear-headedness, but accompanying that was also desperation. Can you even detain Xiang Shu? And what happens after you capture him? Will you use force to make him listen to us explain our situation? He would never believe it. If Xiang Shu did indeed once have a period of time when he had lost his memories, then perhaps he would doubt what they told him and find opportunities later to verify it. But facing this fellow, who had never had a missing gap of memories, how would he believe them? Can you free yourself? Chen Xing asked quietly. Feng Yunjun replied, these ropes cannot restrain me, I'll just need to spend a little time getting out of them, but I want to observe the situation first. What should they do? As Chen Xing was musing, a moment later, Xiang Shu, who had gone to the creek to shave his stubble, returned, seeming to not have heard Chen Xing and Feng Yunjun's discussion regarding the Dinghai pearl. Once again, his handsome visage was revealed, and he began to drink the congee that Feng Yunjun had made. That little dog kept barking to one side, and Xiang Shu shot it a cold look. He then waited a while, until the congee was no longer boiling hot, before ladling out a little under half a bowl and giving that to the dog. Leave us a little, Xiangdi. Feng Yunjun said. We're starving to death. Xiang Shu didn't say anything as he suspiciously watched Feng Yunjun and Chen Xing. Finally, his gaze landed on Chen Xing's face. In that instant, that gaze caused Chen Xing to immediately feel that that was clearly him. It was as if, in the span of that single gaze, they had once again reached their tacit agreement like before, but Xiang Shu clearly, really, didn't remember anymore. Chen Xing watched that expression of his, of wanting to speak but not saying the words, as if he was unable to control his impulse to say something to Chen Xing. Feng Yunjun said, Xiangdi, loosen our bonds for us first, and then we have things to say to you. Chen Xing said, whatever you want to say, just say it. Ba. Feng Yunjun lowered his voice. What I'm doing now is to first make him let down his guard and grow less wary before persuading him. This strategy is a little easier, it's called the art of speech. His ears are very sharp, Chen Xing said. At this volume of yours, it's no different to you speaking right next to his ear. When Feng Yunjun thought about it, he realized that was true. He continued, Xiangdi, let me show you a magic trick, let's make a bet? You want to bet? As usual, Xiang Shu didn't say anything. He avoided Chen Xing's gaze, looking at that bowl of congee in front of him, but his heart didn't seem to be into it. His expression was filled with doubt, as if there were too many things that he didn't have an answer to. Finally, he rose and mounted a horse. The little dog looked at Chen Xing, then looked at Xiang Shu. It hesitated for a split second, but it didn't race up to the horse, instead running over and coming to a stop in front of Chen Xing, barking a few times at Xiang Shu in the distance. Jie! Just like last time, Xiang Shu kicked his horse into motion and left. Chen Xing. Feng Yunjun. Chen Xing, this time he didn't even untie the ropes for us. Feng Yunjun, he probably felt that I could get out, what should we do now? Go to Ma'i City and block his way? Xiang Shu, bring my saber over there, the saber, that, go get it. This time, Chen Xing also had no more ideas. The little dog began to bite at the ropes on him, while Feng Yunjun laid sideways on the ground, inching forward bit by bit like a caterpillar, starting to move towards the Sen Luo saber that had been tossed by the side of the well. As long as he got a hold of the saber, the ropes could be untied. Chen Xing said, confused and upset, I'm hungry, let's eat first. Ba. Why did it have to be him who forgot? A man's voice sounded. Because on the Dinghai pearl is the leftover dragon energy of Zuyan. The two of them jolted in shock. On the parasol tree by the side of the yard, there was a golden red bird, its wings spread, that turned into a blazing fire, which evolved into the form of a naked man. Right after, the blazing flames around his body gathered around him, draping on his body, turning into a royal robe. He had a head of red hair like burning flames, and the royal robe looked like a roaring flame under the bright sunlight, but also like the glow of the rising sun. Tied to his belt were two long golden red tail feathers that trailed against the ground. That royal robe hung very loose on his shoulders, revealing half of his naked body, showing his white, fine skin and his muscles brimming with power. A phoenix. Feng Qianjun had previously heard of phoenixes, and the embroidery done in gold on this person's royal robes was indeed a flying fire phoenix. The two of them realized a problem at the same time. With the revival of all magic, the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth had also returned, which also meant that the Yao on this earth had also reappeared. Wow, Chen Xing said. How come you're wearing this little? It's a little indecent, ba. The phoenix. The moment that Chen Xing saw the phoenix, he couldn't resist thinking that if it was Xiang Shu wearing this outfit, who knows how much of a commotion he'd cause. Don't offend him, Feng Qianjun said, increasing the speed of his struggles as he wriggled towards Sen Luo Wangxiang. I feel like we're not opponents for this kind of great Yaoguai. No worries, the phoenix said. On behalf of you guys reviving all magic, letting Guowang once again be reborn from the flames, this much I can still tolerate. This phoenix's attitude was surprisingly good, and the corners of Chen Xing's mouth twitched. When did you find us? You're that phoenix. Chen Xing suddenly remembered, he was the ashes of the phoenix that had been stored in the amber that Liu Ying gave him. You're that one. Chen Xing said. It's you. I always kept you fastened around my waist. There is only one phoenix in this realm. The phoenix didn't even look at Feng Qianjun as he walked towards Chen Xing. He blocked the light of the sun, looking down at him from high above, as he said, and that is Guowang. Ah, Chen Xing thought for a long while, but he didn't know what to say. It seemed like this phoenix didn't have any intention of coming here to trouble him, and though it could be said that he had been sealed away in the amber before, that amber had accompanied him to many places as he traveled the land. In fact, it even had a little bit of familiar closeness. Wait a moment, Chen Xing said. Why, you said just now, why doesn't Xiang Shu remember anything anymore? The phoenix turned, walking into the sunlight. It then looked at that little dog, which had already backed away in terror behind Chen Xing, curling into a ball. In front of him, normal animals were basically the same as ants. With a sweep of his robe sleeve, golden rays shot out in front of the phoenix's body, revealing that last scene in his memories in front of the rift of time, before the huge wheel of cause and effect turned back. That time, Chen Xing had already fallen unconscious, and it was only then that he knew that what had recreated Xiang Shu's body for him, was actually the phoenix rising from the ashes in the essence of flame, after the revival of all magic. Guowang made a wish, the phoenix said, that whoever caused the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth to return, he would help him do three things. The Dinghai pearl was not in the causes and effects, so when it shattered, Guowang took charge at the last moment and helped Sholokong reconstruct his physical body. For this to be the first granted wish, I imagine you will not reject it either. No, Chen Xing said, as if he was just waking from a dream. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you didn't do that, Feng Qianjun said. Then what would have happened? Chen Xing murmured, cause and effect have shifted around, but the Dinghai pearl was not within the causes and effects, so he would have disappeared. Without you guys, if we returned to the present, the Xiang Shu in the prison would have just disappeared. The phoenix replied, correct, but even if that was the case, the current him is no longer the Dinghai pearl, but the dragon energy is still coiled around his hunpo. When you all were sent back, I Upiter who was also not in the causes and effects, used the Luohun bell to pull away Shulakong's, yours, Feng Yunjun's, Xiao Shan's, and Xian's memories, using a secret method to protect them, sending them back to the current world, injecting them back into your Hunpo. That is why you are able to remember everything that happened before the tides of time turned back. Chen Xing finally understood. He asked, but why hasn't Xiangshu remembered yet? The phoenix then said, memories are born from the power of the Hun, but within Shulakong's body, the dragon strength is fighting with that, which causes the memories that have returned within his body to be suppressed. For a while, he will be unable to remember, but I imagine that after a time, after everything has slowly merged together, perhaps he will be able to remember step by step. That will depend on you all. Feng Yunjun and Chen Xing looked at each other. Though they had spoken for a long time, in reality their words hadn't had a large effect. Chen Xing nodded and said, even Zhu Su also said that he had a feeling that we had known each other before. Perhaps. I feel like Xiangshu will be able to remember. The phoenix then said, these are all not important. The reason why Guowang has come is to remind you of the most important thing. Feng Yunjun said, that. Your Majesty, since it's such an important thing, can you first untie our bonds before saying it? The phoenix completely ignored Feng Yunjun, instead saying to Chen Xing, though the Dinghai pearl has been changed because of cause and effect, and magic has already been revived, but just as before, you all cannot make light of things. Just based on fate itself, it will still head towards that same, determined direction, constantly making self-corrections to return to the original track it was on. A cold thrill shot through Chen Xing's heart, and he said, so Shihai is still here, and Chu will still revive, and we still need to be careful that 3 years later, the same things will happen, is that right? That may not be the case, the phoenix responded, after thinking for a moment. Logically, if there were no minute variables that changed at all, then indeed, there would be a great possibility that destiny would return to its original course. But first off, Iupiter has already departed from your life, and Guowang's rebirth, these two things are the variables that have changed before everything else. After Iupiter explained things, he helped you all keep your original memories, and Guowang also helped Shulakong by rebuilding his physical form. Ah! Chen Xing and Feng Yunjun understood at the same time. If there weren't any variables that the phoenix spoke of, then when the rotating wheel of cause and effect turned and they returned to 3 years ago, Chen Xing and them would not remember anything regarding Wang Zi, and they would also have entirely forgotten Xiangshu's existence. The situation would then change. He would be unable to find his protector martial god, but because of the revival of all magic, he would still have the power to defeat Chu. Those people perhaps would still die one after another, and in the end Chen Xing would gather up all of the current exorcists in the world to fight back against Chu, find the Akala blade, and borrow the power of the humans and the Yao to start a battle with Chu. The final outcome, who would win and who would lose, was still very hard to say. But as of today, because of the two things that Iupiter and the Phoenix had combined their efforts to accomplish, the situation had once again changed. I understand, Chen Xing replied. I will be very careful. The Phoenix sighed, you must put in all of your effort to add variables to the path of cause and effect. When countless variables are gathered together, causing a huge wave that sweeps across the sea of time, only then can the devil god be truly defeated in battle. Thank you Feng Yunjun said. No need to be polite, the Phoenix replied. Guowang also does not want the Yao clan to be controlled by Chu, and even less does he want his subjects to become walking corpses. Chen Xing nodded and said, then what do you plan to do after this? The Phoenix said, Guowang has come forth to make good on his word to grant 3 of your heart's desires. You have already used up 1 before, and now there are 2 left. It must be something within my power to grant, and only after I grant them can I leave with my heart at peace. Chen Xing asked, how about you let us out first, and we can discuss then? The Phoenix's brows moved. He snapped his fingers, and with a "Pei," the ropes on their bodies were burned off, and they were released. The second has been resolved, the phoenix said. The last one, quickly. Wait ah! Feng Qianzhen and Chen Xing protested angrily at the same time. Chen Xing flexed his wrists, before saying, at the end of his rope, what kind of attitude is this? The phoenix was unmoved by this, and he made a if you please gesture as he grew a little impatient. Chen Xing said, the second can't count, I didn't even phrase it properly. The phoenix, this isn't something that only counts when you say so. Chen Xing said, since you're in such a rush to leave, then why did you even tell me about fulfilling 3 of my wishes? If you didn't say anything, no one would know, and as soon as you finished speaking then you would be able to go. Feng Qianzhen said, that's true, if you only said 1 wish then there wouldn't be a problem either, right? The phoenix said, Guowang doesn't want to lie to himself. Feng Qianzhen responded, then since you've even decided not to lie to yourself, you should properly finish. Without waiting for Feng Qianzhen to finish speaking, that phoenix lifted a hand. A wave of powerful energy rushed towards Feng Qianzhen's chest, but thankfully Feng Qianzhen's reactions were quick. He instantly turned and dropped to the ground, lying down, as a streak of blazing flame passed right over him, flying into the distance, causing an earth-shaking explosion. Feng Qianzhen! Chen Xing! The phoenix then snapped again, and 6 fireballs circled around Feng Qianzhen. With that, he turned politely to Chen Xing, answering, say it. Ba. Chen Xing began to think. The phoenix shot another glance to the bound Feng Qianzhen, saying, Guowang doesn't want to casually kill people. The first person that he kills after being revived should be a little more meaningful than this. Chen Xing said, if you use Feng Dage's life to strong-arm me, then the third request will change into reviving him. The phoenix. The phoenix's expression underwent a rapid change, and the fireballs disappeared. But Chen Xing understood something from those actions, and he said, can you still revive people now? Only at the instant of death, the phoenix said coldly, when I split up my essence of flame and release it, can I recreate a body for a human? As for Hunpo, that is not under my control, but thankfully back then, Iupiter was there. Guowang must remind you that you must treat your own life with respect. If you die in the future, Iupiter is no longer here, and there will be no way to revive you again. Chen Xing seemed to have had a similar thought, and he said sincerely, so, to revive Xiangshu, you also had to use up some of your own cultivation. You're really great, thank you, Phoenix. The Phoenix repeated, say it. The two of them stared each other down for a long time, and a long period of silence passed. Chen Xing revealed a grateful smile. I really can't think of anything, Chen Xing said earnestly. How about in this period of time, you first travel with us? Maybe after a while, I'll be able to come up with something. Letting a fighter that was right there go just like that, without getting something out of you? You think I'm dumb? Chen Xing thought. I know that there's no way you'll help us fight, but you must protect me, otherwise if I die, then this matter of you having to accomplish this last task is never going to happen. The Phoenix watched Chen Xing for a long time before he turned his head, his mouth forming a few curse words. He then turned around again and nodded. Very good. Feng Qianzhen understood and shot Chen Xing a thumbs up. Half a shishan later, Chen Xing found a colorful padded cotton jacket, which he temporarily draped over himself to fend off the chill of the spring. Their troop had now become 1 human, 1 phoenix, and 1 dog. He looked at the vast heavens and great lands all around, feeling the vigorous, lively spiritual qi in this world. Nothing from last time counts, Chen Xing said, full of hope. We're going to turn a new page and redo everything. Set off. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 91. Obtaining Trust. My city. Yao King, what is your name? Chen Xing asked, filled with anticipation. How should we address you? The phoenix's handsome, perfect face was set in a dark expression, wholly unwilling to pay Chen Xing any attention. From the Xifeng Bank of my city, Feng Qianjun withdrew some silver, enough to get a new set of clothes for Chen Xing as well as getting a little mink fur coat made for the dog. Inside the tailor's store, Chen Xing carried on a conversation with the phoenix as he changed his robes. Seeing that attitude of his, the phoenix only wanted to send him flying to the ends of the earth with one good smack. Chen Xing continued, "Right now, you shouldn't have a name, right? The phoenix is reborn once every 100 years, over a cycle that repeats every 1,000 years. After it is reborn from the ashes 10 times, it becomes a new self." Before, even though it had been during the silence of all magic, Chen Xing had earnestly studied the origins of the Yaoguai in this realm and their idiosyncrasies, etc. Thankfully, he had read them as stories before, otherwise now he would really be in a sticky situation. Once upon a time, the Yaoguai in this world had been sealed within the 10,000 mountains of the southern border. However, with the disappearance of spiritual qi, the barrier had also dissipated. The Yaoguai spread out into the human realm, but they had also lost all their mana. Gradually, perhaps in the coming 10 or 20 years, the Yaoguai in the world would grow in number. When that time came, the exorcism department, in charge of dealing with these Yaoguai, would need to be rebuilt. Chen Xing finished changing, and carrying the dog in his arms, he walked out of the tailor's store. As he stood under the bright sunlight shining down on the streets of my city, he remembered that when the phoenix had appeared, he hadn't mentioned his name in his introductions. This reincarnation cycle, he should be without a name yet, so he said, "If you don't mind, how about I come up with a name for you?" The phoenix. "When you reappeared in this realm, light was restored to the world," Chen Xing said earnestly. "The spiritual qi returned fully, the reappearance of light. So, I'll call you." The phoenix's brows began to scrunch up a little. "Tian Liang? Or Xiao Liang? Or how about De Liang? A Liang? Liang Liang? The phoenix? They all sound too terrible." In an instant, the phoenix recovered his wits. "No way. Definitely no way." Chen Xing knew that names, to a Yaoguai, were of great importance. When Yaoguai were on the brink of a major accomplishment in their cultivation, they needed a human to acknowledge it in order to complete that last step. For example, if a snake was to cultivate into a jiao, at the very end, they would always need a human, born as the sole intelligent species amongst all of the ones in the world, to point at it and go wah. A jiao. Only at that time would it truly be remade into a jiao, treading the clouds and the fog as it left. This process was called bestowing an official title, and yet those Yaoguai that had been bestowed a title still had no name. If they could gain the honor of having a human name them, that would be a further step up. Since the beginning of time, the divine land had only the 3 clans of the gods, the humans, and the dragons that had the power to give names to all the beings of the world. Chen Xing knew that this phoenix was probably not resistant to having him name him, so he watched him tentatively. As expected, the phoenix indeed did not resist, he only expressed irritability towards the names. "Chong Liang? Fu Liang?" Chen Xing said. "Chong Ming? Ming Liang? Or what if you pick one yourself?" The phoenix was about to open his mouth, but his words dried up again. Chen Xing knew that even though he was born a phoenix, he had no power to choose and could only listen to Chen Xing. After all, whatever the humans called him, he would be that. "No need," the phoenix said, seething with rage. "In all the Yao tribes in the world, who would dare to call Guowang by his name?" "Chong Ming," Chen Xing smiled. "This one ba, improvise a bit." With that, the phoenix received this new name after 1,000 years, and said name was just barely acceptable. "You're done." Feng Qianjun hurried over, saying, "The informants have all been seen to." After a half a shishan, Xiang Xiangdi should be going to rob the Dongzhi Bank. "Eat this Bing Ba." Chen Xing and Feng Yunjun passed through the busy market, and Chen Xing turned his head back to ask, Chongming? Where are you? The phoenix had already disappeared. Chen Xing peered in all directions, and finally he spotted a golden red bird perched on a roof. He knew that he didn't really like to interact too much with mortals, and perhaps he was still giddy with joy from receiving that new name, so Chen Xing chose to not mind him as well. How are we going to deal with the next part? Chen Xing asked Feng Yunjun. Feng Yunjun was also at a loss. As the two of them hid in an alley, eating their bing, he said, I only feel that we cannot lose track of him. If he doesn't show up now, then a little later, we'll go to Mount Longzhong and block him there. But what happens after we block his way? Will he properly listen to us then? Chen Xing indicated for Feng Yunjun to not be anxious, saying, I do have a plan. If you can't come up with something on the spot, then listen to my scheme first. Feng Yunjun nodded. Chen Xing thought over it again and again, before saying cautiously, getting rid of Wang Zi is our biggest short-term goal, and after that is Chu. This time, the biggest advantage we've gained, aside from mana, is an even more important point, it's that Wang Zi is in the dark, while we're in the light. Last time, as soon as we went to Chang'an, we fell into his trap. This time, no matter what, we must not give things away. We must hide well. Feng Yunjun, yes, yes, yes. Xiang Xiandi's plan last time was pretty good. Chen Xing, so we must once again persuade Xiang Shu. As for this, let me do it. Feng Yunjun, only you can do it. Chen Xing nodded. It'll be the same as what we did last time. We'll go up to Chang'an, and this time, knowing where the yin-yang mirror is, we'll steal it and get the Akala blade. Hey! You guys! Wait! Please wait! Madam! It's you! I remember you! Come! Stop the cart! Let me onto the cart so I can give your old master a bit of acupuncture, I promise that he'll get better very quickly. Chen Xing saw a carriage of people pass by and hurriedly dashed out. On that carriage was that exact same family of scholars with that man who had fainted due to anger as the last time that he had come to my city. I can take a look at your family's old master, Chen Xing said warmly. He fainted, is that right? Go away, that person driving the cart said. We're currently searching for a doctor. Ignore that swindler, the madam said. Go to a proper medicine hall, quickly. The old madam said, such a poor, pitiful creature, give him a little silver ba, it's not easy for all of us. Mother. Nowadays, there are all kinds of people. This fellow's words are slippery, and with one look, you can tell he's not some good person. The horse cart didn't stop at all, trampling all over Chen Xing's good intentions. The driver lifted the whip and moved to hit him with it, but Feng Yunjun flew into a great rage. He came forward and grabbed Chen Xing, the two of them retreating to the side of the road, and instantly that family left. Chen Xing. Feng Yunjun consoled, ah well, don't stick your nose into other people's affairs, keep talking. And then what? The yin-yang mirror. Chen Xing could only let that matter go. He also came back, and after thinking about it for a bit, said, we'll get the Akala blade hidden in the mirror, hand it to Xiang Shu, then go to Qi Li Chuan and save Lu Ying. And the Luohun bell, Feng Yunjun said. How about we first go south to return to Jiankong, and after getting the Luohun bell we consider the rest. From here to Kuiji, at top speed on a horse, is no more than 5 days. But Chen Xing said resolutely, the Luohun bell can wait, but the yin-yang mirror cannot. Plus, as soon as we go to Kuiji, Xiang Shu will have run off on his own. His hometown was so close at hand. In reality, last time, when Feng Yunjun had first met Chen Xing, he had been taking a shortcut from Kuiji on his way from Jiankong. But upon hearing these words, he could only let his wish go and nod. The Luohun bell can be obtained last, No rush, Chen Xing said. After getting the Luohun bell, we can then set up an ambush for Wang Zi. We can go with the original plan and completely get rid of him, then go to the Fei River and dig out Chu from underground to even the score with him. At that time, we'll have the deer god, the phoenix, and the artifacts, and also Xian. Feng Qunjun nodded. This plan sounds pretty simple, but as for which step is the hardest, you probably know ba. Chen Xing and Feng Qunjun exchanged a glance. Both of them understood that the hardest part was to get Xiang Shu to listen to directions. And the most important thing was that Xiang Shu, this fellow, was the most unwilling to listen to directions, and the easiest for something to go wrong with. Not to mention last time, Chen Xing didn't even know how Xiang Shu had found Chu at all. He only knew that for some mysterious reason, Xiang Shu went to find Chu, and somehow, Huanmo Palace had appeared, somehow, Xiang Shu became the Dinghai Pearl, and with one arrow he stabbed himself to death, and in the process of doing so, also stabbed the entire family of the devil god to death. He's coming, he's coming. Feng Qunjun immediately shoved Chen Xing behind himself. A robbery, some passerby shouted. The bank's being robbed. Leave it to me, Chen Xing said. You only need to draw his attention away. Go. Xiang Shu was carrying a bag of gold as he walked out from the Dongzhi Bank. Feng Qunjun and Chen Xing immediately ran out of the small alleyway. Feng Qunjun said, "Warrior, please wait. I have something to say." Right after that, Xiang Shu shook his bundle, and the sky was filled with a rain of blossoms. Feng Qunjun ducked immediately, while Chen Xing circled around behind Xiang Shu. The two of them launched a pincer attack, and Chen Xing leapt onto him, hugging Xiang Shu's thigh. Xiang Shu! Xiang Shu turned to leave, but Chen Xing kept hugging his leg, not letting go. Xiang Shu instantly tried to pull his leg out of Chen Xing's grasp, but Chen Xing only hugged it tighter, saying, "Listen to me. Xiang Shu, don't run. Your legs are so long." The soldiers came over, and their leader shouted angrily, "Detain them all." Xiang Shu grabbed Chen Xing's collar, but a surge of energy from who knows where caused Chen Xing to not let go no matter what. The situation was critical. Xiang Shu had no time to play tug-of-war with him, so he could only turn and run towards the alley, dragging him along. Feng Qunjun shouted, "Don't shoot. We're merely assisting a just cause." Xiang Shu! Let go! Xiang Shu finally shouted, enraged. Hugging Xiang Shu's leg, Chen Xing was dragged along into the alley. Feng Qunjun brought up the rear for the two of them, and the three of them circled through the alley, beginning to flee. Chen Xing was almost shaken off by Xiang Shu, so he quickly took the opportunity to climb up a little higher, where he accidentally touched something that was standing stiffly to attention. Chen Xing! Xiang Shu! Xiang Shu was wearing a pair of thin silk pants, and with Chen Xing tightly hugging one leg, his martial pants were almost pulled entirely down. That dog also ran over from the side, barking loudly as it bit down on his pant leg. Xiang Shu was at his wits' end for dealing with this man. Just as he was about to beat him up, Feng Qunjun had already raced over, calling loudly, "Is this your plan? It seems pretty ineffective." As soon as Xiang Shu saw Feng Qunjun, he knew that this fellow knew martial arts. He couldn't attack Chen Xing with great force, but that was not necessarily the case for Feng Qunjun. Immediately, with Chen Xing still hanging off his leg, he turned swiftly, falling into a martial arts stance. Feng Qunjun subconsciously moved to dodge, but Chen Xing took this opportunity to clamber up further. Hugging Xiang Shu's shoulders as he wrapped himself tightly around him from behind, he said one word, "Kajera. Are you looking for Kajera?" Xiang Shu jolted and stopped in his tracks. "One stick of incense later, outside of my city." Chen Xing moved to tug at Xiang Shu's hand, but Xiang Shu, his brows furrowed, moved away. "Speak," Xiang Shu said coldly. "Who exactly are you two?" Finally, he could communicate normally with Xiang Shu. Chen Xing wiped the sweat off his brow, turning a thought over in his mind. Before, he didn't understand Xiang Shu even one bit, and now, though it couldn't be counted as understanding him a lot, at least he understood a few things. Kejera as an embodiment of Wang Zi, was an important clue that Xiang Shu had chased after this entire way here. He, who had been born as the Great Chanyu, had left Chi Le Chuan to come to the South wholly because of Wang Zi. Exorcists, Chen Xing said. As for our origins, I'll explain it to you a little bit later. Feng Dage, how much more time do we have? Feng Qianjun looked at the color of the sky and said, if we leave now, we should be able to reach Mount Longzhong afternoon. Back in the beginning, they had wasted quite a lot of time in my city, but now they had much more time. Chen Xing then nodded and said, our goal is also to pursue and investigate him. Xiang Shu's expression immediately grew focused, and he said, as expected. Who is he? Where is he? What are his intentions? Chen Xing originally wanted to tell him Wang Zi's real identity, but his heart thumped. If he revealed it, what would they do if Xiang Shu immediately ran back to Chang'an to seek revenge? He could not lay all his cards out on the table at once, and immediately he changed his tune. We found a few traces related to him, and he might be in Mount Longzhong at this very moment. Come with us to take a look. Let's talk as we walk ba. At that, Feng Qianjun sent him an admiring glance. With this, Xiang Shu probably wouldn't run off again. Xiang Shu was still rather skeptical about this, but since the other side had mentioned Kejera's name, they must know some inside information. He pondered silently for a moment before he mounted his horse. Chen Xing glanced back. He didn't see the phoenix, but he imagined that he would naturally come chasing after them. Feng Qianjun said, I'll go prepare some things. When we set off, who knows when we'll be able to re-outfit ourselves. Feng Qianjun was giving them a chance to interact on their own. Xiang Shu gazed off in the direction of the great northern lands. The spring wind began to blow, and the plains were a desolate waste. Chen Xing turned his horse to ride beside him, never once taking his eyes off Xiang Shu, and Xiang Shu, with one foot on the stirrup, shifted a little awkwardly. Chen Xing's gaze traveled from his body down to his leg, and he recalled when he had been hugging Xiang Shu's thigh just now. In the beginning, he was really so skinny, Chen Xing thought. Thankfully he had brought medicine. Xiang Shu seemed to be considering matters, and without conscious thought, the corner of his eyes swept over Chen Xing. His gaze also moved to Chen Xing's thigh. After Chen Xing had been hit by the arrow, his thigh had been bandaged. Just now, as he hung off Xiang Shu, dragged along that entire journey, a little blood had seeped out again. At this moment, it was still a little painful, and his brows were slightly furrowed. Why are you searching for him? Xiang Shu suddenly asked. He's a Yaoguai, Chen Xing said. He can harness resentment and revive corpses, so I must get rid of him. Xiang Shu's forehead scrunched up as he fell into deep thought. At last, he asked, why did you save me? A thought flashed through Chen Xing's mind like lightning, and he let go of the request to have Xiang Shu become his protector. He knew that at this moment, if he changed the topic, then the fragile trust that they had just established would once again disintegrate, so he speedily made up an excuse. We've searched for him for a long time, according to the route he took while escaping, and we guessed that perhaps you saw him before, so, we came to Xiangyang to find you. Xiang Shu nodded as he looked at Chen Xing, some suspicion in his gaze, as if he still had many more things to ask. But for now, he accepted that explanation. Chen Xing's heart that had been dangling in midair finally settled at that. He knew that right now, Xiang Shu definitely had many suspicions, but after their interactions last time, he had gradually grown to understand Xiang Shu. To have Xiang Shu once again believe him shouldn't be too difficult. But, will he still like me? Chen Xing was a little hesitant on that front, and as he recalled that bracelet before his departure, he even wondered if Xiang Shu really liked him. For a while, he was a little saddened at that. Xiang Shu saw that, and asked, "You also are seeking revenge against Kajera?" Chen Xing originally wanted to say no, but after thinking through it deeply, he nodded, answering, "Yes, he made me lose many very important people." Feng Qianjun came back with food and wine and an inquisitive light in his eyes. Chen Xing indicated that everything had gone smoothly, and with that, Feng Qianjun said, "I'll lead the way." Saying this, he moved to the front, letting Chen Xing make the best use of his time to get Xiang Shu to grow entranced with him as quickly as possible. As soon as the three of them set out, Feng Qianjun went to the very front, while Xiang Shu fell behind, riding side by side with Chen Xing. "Xiang Shu, in the beginning, I truly did not know your identity. As for the matter with Kajera, why didn't you say so earlier? And what are exorcists?" Chen Xing said, "That is, N." Saying this, Chen Xing was a little stuck again. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration, and his brows furrowed. The arrow wound on his thigh had yet to heal fully, so he could exaggerate it a little. "It's the profession of getting rid of Yao," Chen Xing said to Xiang Shu. "It sounds pretty strange, hey?" Xiang Shu said suspiciously, "Last night, you seemed like a madman." Chen Xing, "Because, it hurts a little, ride a little slower." Chen Xing began to play pretend, and Xiang Shu could only slow, observing his wound. "You don't know martial arts," Xiang Shu said. Chen Xing replied, "Correct. I cannot lift burdens with my shoulders, nor can I carry things with my hands." "Xiang Shu, how did you get into Xiangyang?" Chen Xing thought, "Can't you see that I'm in a lot of pain?" He began to furrow his brow again, his body tilting slightly towards Xiang Shu's side, saying, "Aya, it hurts so much, hey? Why is Feng Dage going so fast?" He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xiang Shu could only say, "Whatever, I'll take you. If we keep going at this speed, we won't be able to get into the mountains even when night falls." Chen Xing said, "How could I impose on you so? I'd be troubling you too much." A slight sliver of exasperation showed on Xiang Shu's face, and Chen Xing said, "Then thank you." And satisfied, he climbed over to sit behind Xiang Shu, hugging his waist tightly and leaning against his back. His body was very warm. Upon seeing Chen Xing change spots, that dog thought that he didn't want it anymore, and it began to bark loudly in distress. Xiang Shu was reminded of its existence, and immediately shot it a look. Chen Xing explained, "Sorry, it has the same name as you. I didn't realize. This is the dog that ran off on me as I was heading to Xiangyang, and in the beginning I met it under an oak tree, which is why I called it Xiang Shu. It wasn't intentional." All right," Xiang Shu said, annoyed. "Change its name." Chen Xing chuckled behind Xiang Shu. "How about you give it one then?" "Xiang Shu, I don't know how to name things." With that, Chen Xing didn't say anything. A moment later, the dog gradually calmed. Xiang Shu then continued, as if he was speaking to himself, "You really don't know even one whit of martial arts." With Xiang Shu's ability, he could see whether the opponent was a martial artist or not with a single glance. On this journey, the thing he was most shocked by was this. "Chen Xing, yeah, what about?" Xiang Shu asked, "You aren't a Xiangyang person, so how did you enter the city?" When Xiang Shu had been imprisoned in Xiangyang, Fujian had already sent troops to entirely surround the city. A youth whose arms lacked the strength to truss a chicken actually, at the most critical moment, successfully sneaking into a city surrounded on all sides by enemies was really a totally unfeasible thing. Chen Xing could only reply honestly, "By luck. My luck has always been good." Xiang Shu scoffed. "Your luck's good, and yet you were hit by a stray arrow." Chen Xing, suddenly, without knowing why, "I became unlucky." Xiang Shu, what did you enter Xiangyang for? Chen Xing said, puzzled, to find you ah. Xiang Shu didn't say anything anymore. Chen Xing's heart blossomed with flowers as he was carried along by the horse that Xiang Shu was riding, through the main road outside of Mount Longzhong, past fields being blown in the spring breeze. Suddenly, Xiang Shu asked, when you found me, how were you going to take me away? You never thought about it. Ah, Chen Xing said. Feng Dage would help me. Xiang Shu, didn't you two reunite after a long time? And how did you know that he would arrive at that critical time? You plainly hadn't thought through it clearly yourself, otherwise you wouldn't be surprised as well. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu's observational skills were very sharp. From Chen Xing and Feng Qianzhen's reunion alone, he quickly deduced that these two people had been separated for a long time. Chen Xing couldn't have been brought into Xiangyang by Feng Qianzhen. Perhaps quite a few months had passed, or even a few years, since the last time they had seen each other. Which was to say, this youth, on his own, had entered Xiangyang, and did everything within his power to lie to Zhu Su to get him to free Xiangshu. After that, he was even going to bring him out of the city, unharmed. Thankfully Feng Qianzhen had come, otherwise with this youth alone, escaping from the fall of Xiangyang with the immobile him would be equivalent to asking for death. Yet, he had clearly known that he would die, and yet he had come to save him. What exactly was this person thinking? End chapter.